I want you to close your eyes and imagine when you take a conference already drowning in football tomfoolery like the ACC, and then remove Clemson. It's one semi-functional life raft. What are you left with? A glorious mess. If my previous hit piece on the Great Tank Conference taught you anything, it's that we're dealing with a lineup of programs as dependable as a soggy spaghetti noodle, as defensively competent as a Lincoln Riley-led team, and about as relevant to the college football ecosystem as the ESPN FBI when it ranks Missouri in the top 15 for funsies. So what monstrosity does this formula produce, you ask? It's the Pac-12. But if we make some slight tweaks to a conference that isn't dead, we get something just as useless, but far more chaotic in nature.
Turn the corner. There he goes. Kingston to the field. Hudson makes the catch. Hudson's out to the this time. Single touch. Nick the quick.
That's left reads it. Gets up through it. He's got a first down inside the red zone. Nice. Muse his fifth catch. Muse off to the races. He's got a blocker. Yeah, that's it.
Welcome to the Big 12, where logic goes to die and chaos as season tickets. You never know where a team's going to end up. Contender? Doormat? Accidentally playing in the Cheez-It Bowl with a 5-7 record without a quarterback on the roster? Who the hell knows? But in exchange for your sanity, you get a weekly dose of pure, uncut entertainment. Picture Big 12 Commissioner and Certified Chaos Enjoyer Brett Yormat kick back on a leather couch with popcorn on one hand and a God Save the Queen button on the other, gleefully watching his teams choke slam each other in what can only be described as the largest Western-themed pillow fight on Earth. In the Big 12, nobody's safe. Title favorites? One-way ticket to a Kansas ambush. Ranked opponents? Great, now watch them get folded like a lawn chair by some backup quarterback with a mullet. This conference doesn't care about your hopes, your dreams, or your emotional stability. Its only mission? Ensure that everyone is equally miserable by season's end. Check the schedule, see who's playing, watch them collapse. You get the point real fast. Any conference that wants its own conference championship gone is clearly not right where it needs to be. I wonder how that happened. We have a real-time synopsis of the Baylor Bears' history as a football program, brought to you by Real Bears! Not exactly real bears, but it mirrors the fact that Baylor isn't a real football program. You know it's a bad situation that you have so many failures and embarrassing moments stacked on top of each other that I'm quite literally confused where to start. I guess we'll take a moment to analyze your list of highlights, starting with winning the Southwest Conference in 1915, 1916, 1922, and 1924. I remember that like it was on my last lunch break. The miracle on the Brazos, in which Texas contributes yet another fat L onto their history of poop fart football. Also remember that like it was on my last lunch break. RG3. Alright, moving on. Ever since his departure, the Bears are about as valuable to the college football world as the Golden Bears and Cal. Basically, both completely useless. Granted, they earn brownie points for actually having Big 12 titles, but said hardware becomes irrelevant because next year is a losing season. Baylor is a part of the Blue Bonnet Battle rivalry versus TCU, the oldest rivalry nobody gives two monkey fucks about, but they have McLean Stadium, which seats over 50,000 people. Ooh! I consider RG3 as Baylor's greatest moment, and it's not even close. Not because there's nothing else to celebrate, but because digging any deeper means I'd have to say the name Art Briles. There's a whole article on the College Football Iceberg that'll explain why I can't talk about that. But unlike that scandal, Baylor can't just sweep their on-field performances under the rug. This program's been on a roller coaster so unstable, it should come with a neck brace, a waiver, and a blue ribbon that says you only gave up 63 to Texas A&M. One year they're winning 11 games and printing wear back t-shirts, and the next, they're getting curb stomped by directional schools with part-time gym teachers calling plays. It's so chaotic that Matt Rule, yes, the guy on the Nebraska rebuild arc, is somehow a crown jewel in the coaching museum. And Dave Aranda, the man's had more hot seat articles written about him than actual wins, and yet somehow still there. Schrodinger's coach of the Big 12, simultaneously fired and extended at all times. At this point, the only reason he still has a job is because AD Mac Rhodes treats mediocrity like it's a core value. 2024, a season that could have halfway been decent, turned to death the moment Shedeur Sanders went Bear Slayer and handed Baylor yet another reminder that their glory days start and end with a Heisman speech in a Subway commercial. Sick 'em? More like, I'm sick.
This play, Sanders gets the feet set.
See? Conference of chaos. Those free Dr. Pepper floats need to be alcoholic at this rate. But even that hardly helps when the whole 50,000 people thing was a lie! Oh boy, I can't wait to get on YouTube and read some more comments from my very supportive fan base where nobody hates me. I can't wait to see, hold on, what's this?
Your cheap joke at K-State is noted. You obviously have no respect for the greatest turnaround in college football. I'm done watching this video. Will never watch any other video produced by this channel. Good day.
Ah, yes, the Kansas State Wildcats, a program so steeped in tradition and success that they practically served as the Power Five's welcome to hell mat for most of the 20th century. From 1913 through 1988, they racked up a breathtaking .341 winning percentage. That's not a football record, that's a weather forecast. Meteors and meteors only. We're talking about a team that had more winless seasons than winning ones during this time. Let that sink in. No, seriously, I gotta wash my face after that one. Their record against teams that finished above 500, an aspiring 1-119. That's not underdog energy, that's should we even field a team energy. Their only real accomplishment during this half-century is a 1982 Independence Bowl appearance so monumental that it may or may not have earned them a parade in Manhattan. But then, enter Bill Snyder, divine intervention from Iowa of all places, Kansas State's very own football Jesus even. The man turned this train wreck into a consistent winner in what might be the most impressive resurrection since James Franklin got Vanderbilt ranked. He pulled the stunt using nothing but dad glasses and sheer willpower. He got them into the national conversation, which...
Stewart's got him in, he's got him, it's tied with 1:05 to go.
Was about the highest point he got them to. But without him, the program is basically a glorified intramural team with better uniforms. Need evidence? The second he dipped out in 2005, the Wildcats nosedived so hard that they could have filed for federal disaster relief, to the point they had to bring him back less than 5 years later. Unfortunately for them, Snyder is not a Viltrumite. He doesn't age in reverse, and eventually, Father Time stiff-armed him into a retirement home. That sent K-State back into the wilderness. Though, to be fair, it's still better than the pre-Snyder abyss. For reference, UAB's 2015 football team was more competitive than the Wildcats pre-Bill. And that team didn't even exist. Nowadays, K-State is stuck in college football purgatory. They're good enough to maybe win the Big 12 if the stars align and the power goes out in Norman, like they did in 2022 when they beat TCU and, well, literally nothing else happened. But even in their current respectable program era, there's still a massive L looming over their heads like a rain cloud full of sadness and burnt purple dreams. They've never won a national title. Not a real one, not a claimed one, not even a fake UCF-style PowerPoint presentation one. None of them. That little fact alone hits the fan base harder than a beefy 5-layer burrito. Hear that, Oregon? You've got company! And hey, at least you're no longer the punchline of the bad football jokes. Can't say the same for someone else in the conference. Specifically, your brother. Every conference needs a Vanderbilt or a Rutgers. What you're looking at here is the Big 12's version of said teams. One of the oldest teams in the nation, and they're continuing the long tradition that they harnessed back in 1890. Losing. Lots and lots of losing. Crimson asses and blue balls on every given Saturday. Being in a state where the most memorable thing to come out of it is the tornadoes it produces in The Wizard of Oz, Kansas struggles to get elite recruits in. And even if they land one of two, everyone else there sucks too hard to utilize the smidge of talent they do have. Gale Sayers did more for the Bears than the Jayhawks. Aqib Talib, probably fighting someone as we speak. John Hadil actually did do things, but so long ago nobody's around to remember it. The most memorable thing to come out of the Jayhawks in the 21st century is Queso's evil twin in the 2007 season. But just like your brother, the Big 12 proves nobody can be happy. So you had to get cucked by Missouri. You'd think winning the Orange Bowl would be the thing to push your program beyond third state of the conference, but Mark Mangino's mouth made sure that wasn't the case. That wasn't a fat joke, by the way. His mouth literally got him forced out of Kansas. After his departure, you establish yourself as the free win for most of the Big 12. It took 4 coaches, several allegations from past schools and your own, and whatever the hell you call the Les Miles arc to get beyond the 3 wins in a single season. Lance Leopold turned Kansas into an actual threat in the conference, but even then, you're still a pushover on most occasions. His best contribution is destroying the conference in 2024 by killing all the frontrunners in back-to-back weeks. If you can't live, they can't either. You've been through 12 head coaches since the turn of the century, and it took another conference's doormat to end a 46-game Power 5 road losing streak. Your facilities are built like a Dollar General because your athletic department keeps putting all their stock into basketball, which even that is falling off at an alarming rate. You finished last or tied for last in the Big 12 in 12 of the last 15 seasons. Whoever can actually rebuild this program and turn it into something beyond the joke of most college football videos is liable to receive a Nobel Peace Prize. At least you made homecoming a thing, but nobody's coming home. The Iowa State Tropical Storms. Just like the Miami Hurricanes, calling you the Cyclones is off limits because it implies you caused damage to anything but yourself. A program as historically relevant as Kansas State, but without the revolution that gave them a couple of years of success. They've been a part of the conference since the beginning of time, and for them, time repeats itself again and again. Go in with middle-of-the-pack expectations, which somehow the team can't even reach. Iowa State didn't even touch the postseason until the 70s, and you want to take a guess at how many bowl games they won in the 20th century? A whopping 0. Yeah, they didn't win a bowl game until the turn of the century. I feel like I have to apologize to Wake Forest after reading that. But that's not all. Iowa State is one of the only programs in the Power 4 to have a losing overall all-time record. They'd have to go undefeated for the next 10 years just to get to 500. They've had coaches like Johnny Majors and Gene Chizik, but they always served as the stepping stone for coaches to get their feet in the head coaching water. Nothing actually happened there. They had to get impermissible benefits and cheat just to get to 500 in a regular season. Jim Kreiner's resume can attest to that. Being on probation didn't affect them in any capacity because they like to live in probation. Without a doubt in my mind though, the saddest, most pathetic stat I've ever seen is the most successful season of all time for Iowa State is the fucking COVID year. 2020. The year where apparently everyone except for them suffered. Unless you want to claim 1912 as your best year, this was the peak of the Iowa State program. They had their most talented team in the following year and then proceeded to finish 500 with said team. Their program is such a mess that their own players are quite literally gambling against their own team. How diabolically bad do you have to be where the players get desperate enough to do that? This program is an absolute mess. All of their ambitions for relevance line up on the shoulders of Brock Purdy's NFL career. Since they can't win the conference themselves, they'll have to continue to be the team nowadays that prevents everyone else from making the conference title. They can make it themselves, but only as the red carpet for others to walk on. Any program that considers the juicy wiggle as a strong tradition has some serious issues. But that only comes after big moments anyway. There are only bruh moments here. You know, being called the Red Raiders implies that you're an actually incredibly strong force to be reckoned with. But the irony here is that it's Texas Tech we're talking about. Half of the narratives around the current year's Big 12 are entirely because of them. When they are hot on offense, they're a strong force enough to contend against any defense that comes across. The only problem here is that your defense is a permanent resident of Cancun. It hasn't been seen since Texas first became a state. This way of playing was good enough to win the Southwest frequently, but died off once the Big 12 was formulated. They've never won the conference since the name was formed. Every chance you get to undo that fact, they fall flat on their face and Lincoln Riley the game away. The legacy of their program can be highlighted by the legendary Pirate himself, Mike Leach.
The mighty Red Raiders, oh yeah, poo-poo, fucking Baylor, fuck you, and fuck me, and fuck everybody.
Even he had a breaking point with the defense. When you give up more than 80 points in any modern era game of college football, it's cause to be thrown into the Sun Belt. Good news, that didn't happen. Bad news, you still suck. The Poop Raiders have never once made a major bowl game. Before you say it, no, the Cotton Bowl doesn't count as that wasn't established as a New Year's Six until after their last appearance. Even in said bowl game, they couldn't ever win it because the defense wasn't there to, defend. They never are. Again, 82 points. That's bad. They scored 59 points on Oklahoma back in 2016 and still lost because the defense allowed over 800 yards. You'd think that with all the engineers who attend this school, they'd figure out how to build a successful program, but every season is a carol of lighting up the defense. They've reached a mark in their program where they rush the field every time they beat a team that doesn't suck. For a program which is most well known for Patrick Mahomes and throwing tortillas on the field, this doesn't surprise me. It doesn't matter how rowdy and obnoxious your Big 12 crowd gets, until your defense gets strength and conditioning anywhere other than Weenie Hut Juniors, this cycle will continue to repeat itself. You got everyone and their grandma out of the transfer portal, but last time I had any faith in you to do anything, you went out and flopped against Wyoming. Try and prove me wrong this time and prove that you're not fraud meant for the 5th best school in the state of Texas. Almost hell. Almost. There's not a whole lot preventing the program from entering the first ring. Being one of the most hostile road environments across the nation is proof that fans and fans alone can carry the team only so far. While they can win a whole lot of games, they are stuck with Oregon Duck syndrome as they too can't win a national championship. Not only that, but they're the winningest program without one. Independent, Big East, Big 12, it doesn't matter. They win a lot of games and then proceed to die where it matters most. Multiple top 10 finishes, Heisman finalists, actual relevance in the college football era, all of that, and they still aren't enough to push them beyond appearing in a New Year's Six every decade or so. Even with resources and high-flying offenses they often have, they are cursed to repeat the cycle of troll victims of the football gods. A lot of these narratives form from the era of Rich Rodriguez, the man who not even Arizona wanted much to do with. However, he had a great career with the Mountaineers, which resulted in 11-win consecutive seasons. Only problem was they kept finding ways to choke at the most pivotal moments. Most common to West Virginia when making fun of them in any capacity is the 2007 rendition of the Backyard Brawl, a rivalry where neither team does dick all. However, Pitt can take credit for the implosion of West Virginia, as the moment they lost, Rich Rod did like Scooby-Doo after seeing the ghost of Pat White's NFL career and ran away. Post his skedaddle from the Mountaineer faithful, the years following would be met with coaches sabotaging other coaches, defensive strokes, and many losing streaks. That's led us to the current year, where they finally got sick of Neil Brown, who I swore had something over the administration with the amount of time it took to pull the plug. The dude went 26-26, so good to see they finally came to their senses and hired someone new. Oh dear lord, not again! Yep. The cycle continues, as Rich Rod comes back to the Mountaineer faithful. He'll have an entirely brand new team at his disposal, and I'm not just talking about the last time he was there. The entire 2024 team is gone too. Most fans expect this to turn out like if George Lucas came back to redirect the sequels of Star Wars, but that's only if y'all beat Pitt. Over in the plains of Stillwater are the brain-eating amoeba and its victims, the Oklahoma State Cowboys football program. OSU is a term not allowed for them because Ohio State has claimed that until the Cowboys figure out how to get the 0-9 Big 12 record right out of their sphincters. You'd expect the home of Barry Sanders to have a little more success through the years, but if they did, they wouldn't be stuck in the Big 12. Originally known as the Oklahoma A&M Aggies, you can already see where this is going. The years after they changed the name were met with similar results as you would expect. Pistol piss. Pat Jones had a successful career with them, if you just forget about the 0-10 season he had. Even Les Miles was also there as a stepping stone job, and he was just as good with clock management there as he is now. Oklahoma State today is connected through a blood bond with Mr. Mike Gundy, a true roller coaster of seasons following him since 2005. Great years, bad years, championship year.
Woody. Touchdown, they did it!
Okay, never mind, not championship years. They had a tendency of pistol pissing themselves at pivotal moments, keeping them stuck under the invisible ceiling of the Big 12. Want to go undefeated? Too bad, 3-game losing streak. Want to make the playoffs? Too bad, choke the title away to the Bad News Bears. I would say make an article about what went wrong, but making articles about Oklahoma State is liable to end in the most unpleasant of results.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
That's fine though. You want to know what's better than competing for titles? Not even coming close to them. Let's get blown out in vital conference games. Guys, I think by the dirty game they meant cheating, not what's in the toilet. So now here we are in the current year, where the Cowboys stand at the bottom of the conference, abandoned by your big brother, and Gundy is still your coach. You fans have seen just about everything all at once with your program, so no matter which direction 2025 takes you, you won't be shocked in the slightest. The best advice I could give you in this situation is to go ahead and buy a water filter. The Toads are the conference in the form of the TCU Horned Frogs, a Christian university that gets to pray overtime every Saturday. Joining later than everyone else, they get just as big of an invitation to the shit show. Recently established Power 4 program, but D1 choke artists. They are actually programs with some hardware under their belt, with 2 claimed titles, which is more than everyone else somehow. Their history can be capitalized by Conference World Tour, spending years in the Southwest, Mountain West, Conference USA, and then at some point they made it to the Big 12. Dennis Franchione, of all people, paved the way for Gary Patterson to spend as much time there as Belichick did with the Patriots. Or somewhere around that. Patterson takes the credit for building the Horned Frogs into a program respectable enough to return to the power status in the 2010s. Unfortunately for them, the only choke job they didn't have was in a year where they got Cincinnati and then didn't even get the chance to play for a natty. The years following were filled with choke jobs and disappointments. Giving up 61 to Baylor is not the way to get into the college football playoffs if you needed a reminder. Once Patterson's luck ran out and he got run off by TCU, Sonny Dykes made a deal with the devil and became one with the clutch bone, winning half of his games off of bullshit and Connor Stallions not spying enough on them, which then led him to the long-awaited national title appearance, which then led to this shit. The biggest national ass whooping anyone has ever taken on the big stage. When you guys have an anthem that sounds like a Fall Guys song, the results to be expected. We have you to blame for half of the country thinking Deion Sanders was a great head coach off of his debut game, and it seems that after the title game, the magic is worn off and you've gone back to being buried among the Big 12 tomfoolery. It's hard to get a leg up being in the melting pot of recruiting in the South because everyone else wants to pursue other schools. In reality, the only way I see the magic from 2022 happening again is if Sonny Dykes has another kidney to give up. Those are the teams that are well known in the Big 12, but if you thought that was all the stupidity you'd witness from this conference, I'll have you know that despite the conference being chaotic enough, the football AIDS not only extends to others, but it doubled in size. Newcomers from the Group of 5 and Pac-12 came in to join the fun. They're as consistent as everyone else is. So let's take a detour and see what awaits. You've got time, I mean it's not like your team's getting any better. Luke Fickell has honestly done a really impressive thing. No, I'm not talking about the playoff appearance, rather I'm talking about the fact that he's put two programs on death row at the same time. In retrospect, this should have been a great pickup for the conference, considering the Bearcats are the only G5 team to make the 4-team playoff. But ever since Fickell's departure and Scott Satterfield's entry, they've gone back to the days of when Butch Jones was their head coach. It's right where they belong, honestly, as they've spent their entire life cycle hovering around mediocrity, so it only makes sense that they are stuck here. Who knows though, with a newly improved athletic facility, players might actually be interested in coming to you over the conveniently placed school next to you. But to be honest, I doubt any of the big time recruits are all about 5-game losing streaks. At least you beat the conference champion. Did you guys know Brian Kelly coached this team at one point? I guess we know where the curse came from. Joining the FBS in 1996, it's days like these where I'd consider going back. Like Cincinnati, they've had some great seasons before joining the big leagues. Scott Frost brought the program back from an 0-12 season 2 years after the fact. Josh Heupel carried consistent success before being the reason Sam Pittman still has a job. Gus Malzahn was there. I made a video previously about his tenure there, and to say the least, there were very few Waffle House nights upon his coaching tenure. Of course, now that you suck again, you've been forced to go back to your roots once again. Scott Frost has returned. The man basically turned Nebraska into a whoopee cushion of a football program, so I'm interested to see if he can do anything meaningful as his former career. Their fans are still waving around their claimed national title like they would have totally beat Alabama back in 2017. But that's about all they can do because the current year is looking like they'll be back in the rebuilding phase for a little while. You're in Florida, you'll figure it out soon enough. Sick of being an independent, the Cougars brought some hardware that the Big 12 now gets to claim and make themselves look better. However, that hardware was back in 1984 and only reinforces the idea that the Big 12 is lacking behind the SEC and Big 10. Once again, we have another case of a team that benefited off of the COVID year, as Zach Wilson was their happy place for a while. Not too happy though, because remember it's BYU where the Freak Bobs and Diddies of the world don't belong. Because of their long independent stature, they are only now receiving the revenue bump from conference play. It's not like they're Notre Dame and have the resources for the playoffs. They're going into 2025, they're riding high off of an 11-win season and don't have any offseason blunders slowing them down. What? Houston, we have a problem. The Cougars are playing football again. They're like the Netflix TV show so boring to watch that the TV asks, "Are you still watching?" 10 seconds into it. You'd literally rather be doing anything else with your time. They joined the Big 12 because they were getting dominated in recruiting by these teams, and now they get to be dominated by them on the field too. The coaches, they claim, treat their program like the one-star hotel with ratings akin to fan perception of the Houston Texans. Coaches like Art Briles before the you-know-what, Kevin Sumlin before he killed A&M, Tom Herman before he killed Texas, and Daniel Holgorsen before the moment he killed, well, Houston. Even at their best, they'd eventually crash and burn before making it to the finish line. The only thing preventing them from being poor man's UCF is that they aren't dumb enough to claim the 2015 Peach Bowl as a national title. They'll have to go into 2025 with Willie Fritz and Connor 8-4 Wegman on their behalf for a chance to prove me wrong about these takes. Maybe this year, they'll score a point against Cincinnati. Does anyone else think it's on brand for Utah to be where they are right now? They had a streak of great seasons while in the Pac-12, but the moment they're forced to adjust to a different conference, they can't even make a bowl game. Sounds about right to me. It's not like they were going to win the bowl game anyway, as they're on a 5 bowl game losing streak. Just like with Mike Gundy, remembering Utah before Kyle Whittingham is like trying to remember the United States before the inclusion of the Western States. Urban Meyer had that one year where they went undefeated, but just like his heart attack, they apparently weren't real, and thus weren't seen as a national championship caliber team. Utah isn't exactly a likable destination for anyone to go to, and is just usually seen as the roads to Las Vegas. Even to this day, they couldn't go a single game without the entire team getting injured. By the end of the year, they were down to walk-ons and frat boys on the roof. The only emotion left was from the AD crying about ref ball versus BYU. As expected, they've chosen the ride or die with Whittingham and company enter the 2025 season route. Whoever it goes, at least they'll always be seen as Lincoln Riley's daddy-in-law. What a world we're in, huh? It's June of 2025 and Deion Sanders is still the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes. Not only that, but he's trying to build a roster. Crazy what type of world we're living in. Truly, truly crazy. If I'm a Colorado fan, I'm taking the small wins where I can get them. There haven't been many of them since 1990. The moment Bill McCartney retired, the program took a decline instantly. So much so that, ironically, Deion Sanders might actually be the best coach they've had since then. I say might, so keep the typing to yourself. The previous year brought some light upon the program that they haven't seen since they were last part of this conference. We're going to find out real fast if there's some talent across the field from the transfer portal, or if Travis Hunter was the golden ticket to something beyond 500. Since they only had one successful season in the Pac-12, it would be wise as a Buff man just to count your blessings and hope that Deion actually sticks around for the 2025 season. Seriously, I can't get my head around the fact he's still there. Is Shedeur planning on leaving the Browns? Is that why he's waiting? I want to be shocked either way. Smart move on your end to join this conference. Leaving yourself in limbo like Oregon State and Wazoo is going to end up with you as a longtime resident of the Mountain West. What exactly do you have to offer in the college football world? Nobody really knows. I mean, nobody wants to play in the Arizona Heat, and the ones dumb enough to do it are heading off to the Sun Devils. Your miraculously good seasons are as rare as they come, only happening when wished upon the shitting star of Tucson. Rich Rod contributed to the massacre of the second program we talked about in this video with his name in it, along with Kevin Sumlin making another triumphant appearance. Jed Fish was thought to be the one to turn it around, but he turned heel to the Big Ten along with the talent. They are an absolute mess in the current year. Having to transition to the Big 12 made it all the more painful to watch this team play. The only thing they're good for was proving Utah was heavily overrated. 2025 looks worse now that McMillan is off to the NFL. You lost the only offensive production you had in an offensive league like the Big 12. Hold on to the conference contract. The CW is frothing at the mouth for your company. Forks up into a very specific socket. Arizona State is a program that lives in mediocrity. They've become one with the word at this point. Their expenditures in the Pacific Coast verified that all too well. Their recruiting strategy: host parties, pray the NCAA isn't watching, and hope the recruit doesn't Google your win-loss record. But like anyone else, a conference change was ironically all they needed, as just a few years after receiving a postseason ban because Herm Edwards used NIL before it was legal, Arizona State pulled out the SMU trick and trolled everyone by making it to the conference championship game. Additionally, they found a way to win the whole conference in a year where they were projected to finish last. I can't possibly think of a more fitting way for the Big 12 to end in 2024. They even got a first-round bye with the help of Sam Levitt and the great Cam Skibbity. However, Texas was looming over you. As you would expect, the game certainly lived up to Big 12 potential. Texas couldn't get out of their own way, and the Sun Devils are pulling out all the tricks and bullshittery. But the Big 12 does what the Big 12 does best: makes entertainment. Sent the Longhorns into overtime and then proceeded to
stay alive. Can they hook 'em? Touchdown, Matthew Golden.
let Matthew Golden be wide open on 4th and long. But as I'm sure you're aware, the Big 12 has 2 rules. One, of course, is the disposition of chaos, but the other is that all who choose to partake in the chaos have a 0% chance of coming out of it with a happy ending.
3rd and 8. Levitt. That ball's intercepted! It is intercepted! Makuma seals it!
You know, you could always self-impose another bowl ban to avoid a second embarrassment. So that's the Big 12 for you. There are some big winners, big losers, and teams that don't belong at all, but they all remain here, and that's half the fun. Whenever you get bored of watching Purdue get 60 hung up on them, or the SEC teams are done imploding all over themselves, check out the Big 12. It provides all the entertainment of the ACC with a little bit of more talent included. Or talent at all. Until next time, thank you for watching, and power to Tardaria. Also, check out the merch store. The promo code is in the description.
Hypnotoad!